The Galactic Military Academy's Great Hall buzzed with nervous energy as cadets from 47 different species filled the ancient amphitheater. Commander Zethkar, a towering Vorthok with 4 arms and crystalline skin that reflected the overhead lights, stood at the podium reviewing his notes. Today's lecture would cover historical military engagements, focusing on tactical efficiency and casualty ratios across different species forces. Today we examine the mathematical reality of warfare. Zethkar began, his voice carrying easily through the hall's acoustics. Every military action can be reduced to numbers: inputs, outputs, resources spent, objectives achieved. He gestured with 2 of his arms, while the other 2 manipulated the holographic display behind him. Let us begin with the Krillian shock troops. The display showed armored insectoid warriors, their razor-sharp limbs gleaming. The average Krillian shock trooper eliminates 2.3 enemy combatants before falling in battle. This ratio has remained consistent across 17 major conflicts over the past 2 centuries. Murmurs of approval rippled through the Krillian cadets in the front rows. Their species took pride in their natural weapons and aggressive tactics. The Cynthian Void Hunters, Zethkar continued, achieve a ratio of 3.1 to 1, utilizing superior technology and cybernetic enhancements. The hologram shifted to show sleek, partially mechanical beings with glowing optical implants. Their precision and enhanced reflexes make them formidable opponents. A Cynthian cadet's optical implants flickered with what might have been satisfaction. The Thorian berserkers managed 3.8 to 1 through sheer physical dominance and pain resistance. The display now showed massive, fur-covered humanoids with pronounced fangs and claws. Their ability to continue fighting despite severe injuries is legendary. Zethkar moved through species after species. The telepathic Mindari achieved 4.2 to 1 through coordinated group tactics. The energy-based Luminari reached 4.7 to 1 by existing partially outside normal spacetime during combat. The bio-engineered Nexari warriors hit 5.1 to 1 with their adaptive physiology that could counter almost any weapon type within minutes of first exposure. Now, Zethkar said, his tone shifting slightly, we come to a rather unique case study. The hologram flickered and displayed a figure that caused immediate murmuring throughout the hall. It showed a relatively small, bipedal creature with no visible natural weapons, no apparent armor, no cybernetic enhancements, and no obvious biological advantages. The human marine, Zethkar announced. Cadet Vex High, a young Krillian in the 3rd row, raised one of his blade-tipped appendages. Commander, I believe there may be an error in your data. Humans are not a military species. They're traders and diplomats, are they not? Several other cadets chittered, clicked, and hummed in agreement. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as merchants, negotiators, and cultural ambassadors. They ran some of the most successful interspecies businesses and had broker peace between warring factions on dozens of occasions. They were soft, peaceful, unremarkable. That assumption, Zethkar replied, is precisely why we study this case. The human Marines represent one of the most significant statistical anomalies in recorded military history. The hall fell silent. Even the usual background hum of various species breathing, clicking, and electrical discharges seemed to diminish. Human physiology appears unremarkable, Zethkar continued. No natural armor, no claws, no fangs, no venom, no cybernetic integration, no psionic abilities. Their bone density is average. Their muscle efficiency is standard. Their reaction times are merely adequate. By every measurable physical metric, humans should be among the least effective soldiers in the galaxy. Cadet Nexus 7, a floating ethereal being composed of condensed energy, pulsed with curiosity. Then why do you present them as an anomaly, Commander? Zethkar manipulated the controls, and the display shifted to show combat footage. The hall watched as human soldiers moved through what appeared to be a devastated cityscape, their movements careful and coordinated. They carried projectile weapons that seemed primitive compared to the energy weapons most species preferred. This footage is from the Battle of Kepler 442b, 18 months ago. A Zephyrian raiding fleet had overwhelmed the planet's defenses and established fortified positions in the capital city. The local garrison, consisting of Thorian and Cynthian forces, had been decimated. Casualty projections for retaking the city ranged from 60 to 80% of any assault force. The footage showed explosions, energy beams cutting through buildings, and the massive, technologically superior Zephyrian forces maintaining defensive positions that seemed impregnable. The humans arrived with a single ship, one company of Marines, 73 individuals. Zethkar paused, letting that number sink in. They requested no orbital bombardment, no artillery support, no air superiority. They simply began. The holographic footage shifted to follow the human forces. The cadets watched in fascination as the humans moved through the city differently than any military force they'd studied. Instead of direct assaults on fortified positions, the humans seemed to flow around obstacles like water, appearing where they weren't expected, striking from directions that seemed impossible, then vanishing before retaliation could be organized. Observe their tactical approach, Zethkar narrated. Rather than rely on superior firepower or physical dominance, they demonstrate what can only be described as adaptive cunning. Watch this sequence. The display focused on a single human, a female carrying what appeared to be an outdated explosive device. She had somehow reached a position directly beneath a Zephyrian command post that was 3 stories above ground level. As the cadets watched, she used a combination of architectural knowledge, timing, and what seemed like supernatural patience to bring down the entire structure, using its own support columns against it. How did she know the building's weak points? Asked Cadet Morgoth, a stone like granite whose people were master architects. Standard human military training includes basic engineering, structural analysis, chemistry, electronics, field medicine, linguistics, and approximately 30 other specialized skill sets, Zethkar replied. Each Marine is essentially a multi-specialist capable of adapting to situations that would require several different experts from most other species. The footage continued. The cadets watched as humans improvised weapons from industrial equipment, turned the city's own infrastructure into tactical advantages, and demonstrated an almost instinctive understanding of 3-dimensional urban combat that utilized everything from sewer systems to building tops. But their physical capabilities remain limited, protested Cadet Silthara, a serpentine naga whose species prided itself on superior reflexes. Surely the Zephyrians' superior technology and numbers would eventually overwhelm them? Zethkar adjusted the display to show the battle's progression over time. The engagement lasted 14 hours. At the end of that period, the Zephyrian force had been completely eliminated or had surrendered. The city was retaken with minimal collateral damage. The human casualties were... He paused dramatically, scanning the faces of the cadets. 0 killed in action, 4 wounded, all of whom returned to duty within a week. The silence in the hall was absolute. Even the mechanical humming of various life support systems seemed to pause. Cadet Vex High's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Commander, surely you mean to say the human casualties were 0% of their force? Not 0 individuals? I mean 0 individuals, Cadet. Not one human Marine died in the retaking of Kepler 442b. Zethkar manipulated the display to show final casualty reports. The Zephyrian force consisted of approximately 2,700 soldiers, all eliminated or captured by 73 humans. The numbers appeared on the hologram in stark, undeniable detail. The ratio was staggering. This brings us to our central question, Zethkar continued. Based on documented engagements over the past 5 years, since humans began participating in galactic military actions, what do you calculate as the average casualty ratio for a single Earth Marine? Cadet after cadet attempted calculations, their various species' methods of computation running through possibilities. The Cynthians' cybernetic implants flickered rapidly. The Mindari cadets formed telepathic calculation networks. The mathematical prodigies among the Nixari began generating probability matrices. 50 to 1? Suggested a Luminari cadet. Higher, Zethkar replied. 100 to 1? Tried a Thorian. Higher. 500 to 1? The voice belonged to Nexus 7, whose energy form was pulsing with confusion. Zethkar manipulated the holographic display one more time. The number that appeared caused several cadets to make sounds of distress, disbelief, and in some cases, what might have been fear. Based on 47 documented engagements across 23 different theaters of operation, the average casualty ratio for a single Earth Marine is approximately 2,400 to 1. The Great Hall erupted in chaos. Cadets of different species began arguing, demanding to see data, questioning the authenticity of the records. The noise grew so loud that Zethkar had to activate the hall's sonic dampeners to restore order. "Commander," called out Cadet Thane Moore, an elderly Vorthok who served as the senior cadet representative. "Such numbers seem impossible. Even if we accept that humans possess some unknown tactical advantages, the mathematics simply doesn't support such extreme ratios. No species in recorded history has achieved anything close to such efficiency." Zethkar's crystalline skin shifted to a darker hue, indicating serious contemplation among his kind. "Your skepticism is understandable, Cadet Thane Moore. I had the same reaction when these reports first crossed my desk. That is why tomorrow's lesson will focus on detailed analysis of specific human military engagements, including full tactical breakdowns and verified casualty reports from neutral observers." He gestured to dismiss the day's session, but many cadets remained in their seats, still processing the information. "For tonight's study assignment," Zethkar added, "I want each of you to research one documented human military action and prepare to present your findings on how such effectiveness might be achieved by a species with no apparent physical advantages." As cadets began filing out of the hall, small groups formed immediately, animated discussions breaking out in dozens of different languages and communication methods. The general consensus seemed to be disbelief, mixed with a growing curiosity about these unremarkable-looking creatures who had somehow achieved the impossible. Cadet Vexhai lingered near the podium as the hall emptied. "Commander, may I ask a personal question?" Zethkar nodded, his forearms busy organizing his teaching materials. "Have you ever encountered a human marine in person?" The commander's crystalline skin shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, almost black purple that Vorthax rarely displayed. "Once, Cadet, during a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim territories, there was an incident with raiders, and let us simply say that tomorrow's lecture will include that encounter, and you will understand why the Academy now requires all cadets to study human military doctrine as a mandatory subject." Vexhai clicked his mandibles thoughtfully and headed for the exit, his mind already racing with questions that would plague him until the next day's lesson. As the Great Hall finally emptied, Commander Zethkar stood alone with the holographic display still showing that impossible number. 2,400 to 1. He had been teaching military history for over 3 decades, had witnessed battles involving every major species in the galaxy, and had thought he understood the mathematics of warfare. Then he had met Sergeant First Class Maria Santos of the Earth Marines, and everything he thought he knew about combat had changed forever. Tomorrow, he would share that story with his cadets, and he suspected their worldview would be altered just as permanently as his own had been. The display finally winked out, leaving the hall in darkness. But the questions raised that day would illuminate discussions throughout the Academy for months to come. The Academy's Great Hall was packed beyond capacity the following day. Word of Commander Zethkar's impossible casualty ratio had spread throughout the station, drawing not only cadets but also instructors, visiting military attachés, and even several high-ranking officers from various fleet commands. Additional seating had been arranged, and overflow crowds watched from remote viewing areas. Commander Zethkar entered to find the hall buzzing with excitement and skepticism in equal measure. He noticed several senior faculty members in the back rows, including Admiral Korvex of the Scythian Navy and General Throckmar of the Thorian Ground Forces. The presence of such high-ranking officers confirmed that yesterday's lecture had created ripples throughout the galactic military community. "I see our discussion has generated considerable interest," Zethkar began, his crystalline skin shifting to a calm blue hue. "Before we examine specific human engagements, I want to address the mathematical analysis many of you have undoubtedly performed overnight. Cadet Thane Moore raised an appendage. Commander, our study groups calculated that for a 2,400 to 1 ratio to be accurate, each human would need to eliminate nearly 50 enemies per day in extended campaigns, or demonstrate perfect battlefield efficiency in shorter engagements. The logistics alone seem impossible. An excellent analysis, Zethkar acknowledged. Your mathematics are correct, which is precisely why human military doctrine represents such a fascinating study. Let us examine the Battle of Proxima Relay to understand how these numbers translate to actual combat. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional representation of a massive space station orbiting a gas giant. Proxima Relay served as a critical logistics hub for the Outer Rim territories. 2 months ago, it was seized by a coalition of Ravager fleets, numbering approximately 15,000 combatants from various pirate species. The display zoomed in to show the station's defensive positions, weapon emplacements, and the surrounding fleet of captured vessels. The station's original garrison had been overwhelmed within hours. Standard military doctrine suggested a minimum force of 30,000 troops would be required to retake such a fortified position. The humans arrived with 212 Marines aboard a single assault transport, Zethkar continued. Their approach was unconventional. The hologram shifted to show a small, unremarkable vessel approaching the massive station complex. Rather than request the standard siege equipment, orbital bombardment support, or numerical reinforcement, the human commander submitted a simple 3-word tactical plan to Fleet Command. Cadet Nexus 7 pulsed with curiosity. What did it say? We got this, Zethkar replied, causing several species to emit sounds of confusion at the colloquial phrasing. The display began showing recorded battle footage from the station's own security systems. The humans divided into small teams of 4 to 6 individuals each, and infiltrated the station through maintenance shafts, cargo bays, and what appeared to be impossible entry points. The cadets watched in fascination as human soldiers moved through the station's corridors with an efficiency that seemed to defy physics. Unlike the direct assault tactics favored by most species, the humans flowed through the station like a virus, appearing where they weren't expected and accomplishing objectives that shouldn't have been possible. Observe Team Alpha's approach to the main reactor complex, Zethkar narrated. The Ravagers had established overlapping fields of fire covering all major access routes. Traditional assault doctrine would require overwhelming force to break through. The footage showed 6 humans studying the defensive layout from a concealed position. What happened next defied conventional military thinking. Instead of attacking the position directly, one human began dismantling what appeared to be a ventilation grate, while another produced a small device from his pack. Is that human dismantling critical station infrastructure during active combat? Asked Admiral Corvex from the back of the hall. Indeed. Corporal Jackson is reprogramming the atmospheric control system to create a localized pressure differential that will disable the Ravager's defensive sensors, while Sergeant Kim establishes an alternative entry route through the station's waste management system. The cadets watched as the humans executed a plan that incorporated engineering, environmental systems, timing, and what could only be described as inspired improvisation. Within minutes, the previously impregnable defensive position was neutralized without firing a shot. But surely this was an isolated incident of cleverness? Protested General Throckmar. No force can maintain such innovative thinking across an entire battle. Let us examine Team Delta's simultaneous assault on the command center, Zethkar replied, adjusting the display to show another part of the station. The Ravagers had established their command post in the station's most secure area, protected by blast doors, energy shields, and 100 veteran fighters from 7 different species. The new footage showed 4 humans approaching what appeared to be an impossible fortress. The command center was located at the station's core, accessible only through heavily defended corridors that funneled attackers into killing fields. Private Chen, a human demolition specialist, identified that the command center's power relay passed through a maintenance junction 3 decks below their position, Zethkar explained. Rather than assault the position directly, the team spent 40 minutes carefully accessing this junction. The cadets watched as the humans used maintenance ladders, service corridors, and what appeared to be heating ducts to reach a location that didn't appear on any tactical map. The precision required was staggering. One wrong turn would have led them into occupied territory or critical ship systems. Once in position, did they simply destroy the power relay? Asked Cadet Silthara. Something far more sophisticated, Zethkar replied. Private Chen modified the power relay to create a cascading system failure that would disable not only the command center's defenses, but also the artificial gravity in that section, while maintaining life support. This would incapacitate the defenders without killing them, allowing for easier capture. The footage showed the aftermath. Confused, Ravagers floated helplessly in zero gravity, as humans in magnetic boots secured the command center with minimal violence. The entire operation took less than an hour. Meanwhile, Teams Bravo and Charlie were simultaneously disabling the station's weapon systems through equally creative means, Zethkar continued. Team Bravo convinced the station's automated defense grid that the Ravagers were actually invading borders by hacking the identification protocols. The station began targeting the very forces that had captured it. Cadet Vexhi's mandibles clicked in disbelief. They turned the station against its own occupiers? Precisely. Team Charlie, led by Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, accessed the station's communication array and began broadcasting surrender demands in the native languages of all 7 Ravager species. However, they carefully modulated the broadcasts so that each species believed the surrender demands were coming from their traditional enemies among the other Ravager groups. The implications hit the cadets immediately. The humans had turned the Ravagers' natural mistrust and species rivalries against them, creating confusion and conflict among the defending forces. The psychological impact was devastating, Zethkar explained. Within 2 hours, the various Ravager factions were fighting each other, as much as they were fighting the humans. The station descended into chaos, but it was a chaos the humans had created and could predict. The holographic display showed a timeline of the entire operation. The cadets watched in amazement as 200 humans systematically dismantled a force 70 times their size through coordination, innovation, and tactical thinking that seemed to anticipate their enemies' responses several moves in advance. The final phase began when the Ravager commander attempted to destroy the station rather than surrender it. Zethkar continued. The humans had anticipated this possibility. How could they anticipate such a drastic action? Asked Cadet Morgoth. According to post-battle interviews, the human commander stated that destroying valuable assets rather than lose them was a textbook desperate response that any cornered force might attempt. The humans had identified and secured all critical self-destruct mechanisms within the first hour of their assault. The footage showed human teams emerging from seemingly impossible locations throughout the station, simultaneously disabling destruct charges that the Ravagers had spent weeks installing and hiding. The battle concluded after 4 hours and 17 minutes, Zethkar announced. 15,000 Ravager combatants were either eliminated or captured. Human casualties were 12 wounded. None killed. The station was retaken with all critical systems intact and operational. The silence in the hall was deafening. The mathematics were undeniable, but the implications challenged everything the cadets thought they understood about warfare. Cadet Thane Moore was the first to speak. Commander, how do humans develop such tactical flexibility? Is this the result of enhanced neural processing, genetic modification, or some form of combat drug? None of those, Zethkar replied. According to human military records, their training methodology focuses on something they call adaptive problem-solving under stress. Each Marine is trained not just in combat techniques, but in dozens of seemingly unrelated skills. Basic engineering, improvised chemistry, psychological analysis, systems hacking, environmental manipulation, and what humans term thinking outside the box. But how do they coordinate such complex operations without telepathic links or hive mind protocols? Asked Nexus 7. Human military doctrine emphasizes what they call mission-type orders, Zethkar explained. Rather than detailed instructions, human commanders provide objectives and allow individual teams to determine their own methods. This decentralized approach means that even if command and control are disrupted, Each small unit continues operating independently toward the common goal. Admiral Corvex leaned forward in her seat. Commander, you mentioned yesterday that you had personally encountered human marines. Perhaps it's time to share that experience. Zethkar's crystalline skin shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple that indicated profound respect among his people. 3 years ago, I was part of a diplomatic mission to negotiate mining rights in the Kepler asteroid belt. Our convoy of 6 ships was attacked by a substantial pirate fleet, over 40 vessels of various classes. The hall leaned forward collectively, sensing that this personal account would provide insights that dry tactical reports could not. The pirates disabled our escorts within minutes and began boarding operations on the diplomatic vessels. Standard protocols called for surrender to preserve lives, as our security forces were vastly outnumbered. However, there was a single human vessel traveling with our convoy. A merchant transport that had requested protection for the same route. Zethkar manipulated the holographic display to show the convoy layout and attacking fleet. The human ship contained a crew of 43, including 12 Marines who were traveling as passengers. When the attack began, the human captain contacted our flagship with a simple message. Hold position. We'll handle this. 43 humans against a fleet of 40 pirate ships? Cadet Vexhai sounded incredulous. The engagement lasted 18 minutes. Zethkar continued. The human ship didn't fire a single shot at the pirate fleet. Instead, the Marines somehow infiltrated the pirate ships during the confusion of the initial attack. I still don't understand how they accomplished the boarding actions. What happened to the pirate fleet? Asked General Throckmar. Destroyed from within. The humans systematically sabotaged the pirate ship's life support, navigation, and weapon systems. They turned the pirates' own vessels into traps, using the ship's emergency protocols and safety systems as weapons. By the time the engagement ended, 37 pirate vessels had been eliminated, and the remaining 3 surrendered unconditionally. The hall remained silent as Zethkar continued his account. After the battle, I requested permission to interview Sergeant First Class Santos, the Marine team leader. I asked her how 12 humans had defeated over 2,000 pirates in less than 20 minutes. Her response has haunted my understanding of warfare ever since. What did she say? Cadet Silthara asked quietly. She said, Commander, we didn't fight 2,000 pirates. We fought 40 separate, poorly coordinated groups who happened to be in the same place. Once you understand the difference, the math becomes easy. Zethkar paused, allowing the implications to sink in. That, cadets, is why we study human military doctrine. They don't just fight battles, they reshape the fundamental nature of the conflict itself. Tomorrow, we will examine specific human tactical innovations and discuss how other species might adapt these methodologies to their own capabilities. As the session ended and cadets began filing out, the discussions were notably different from the previous day. Instead of skepticism and disbelief, the conversations focused on analysis, adaptation, and a growing respect for a species that had revolutionized warfare through intelligence, creativity, and an apparently limitless capacity for tactical innovation. Admiral Corvex approached the podium as the hall emptied. Commander, I believe the High Command needs to see these records. If human capabilities are this extensive, our current threat assessments may be completely inadequate. Zethkar's skin shifted to a worried orange hue. Admiral, with respect, I believe our threat assessments are adequate. The humans are our allies. The question that keeps me awake at night is what happens if that ever changes. The Admiral stared at the empty holographic display for a long moment before quietly leaving the hall, her expression thoughtful and deeply concerned. Alone again, Commander Zethkar began preparing for the next day's lesson, but his thoughts kept returning to Sergeant Santos and her simple, terrifying statement about the mathematics of warfare. In reshaping conflict itself, humans had achieved something that superior technology, enhanced biology, and greater numbers could not match. They had made victory inevitable, not through force, but through understanding. And that understanding, Zethkar realized, made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The atmosphere in the Academy's Great Hall was electric with anticipation, as Commander Zethkar prepared for his final lecture on human military doctrine. The past 2 days had generated unprecedented interest throughout the galactic military community. High-ranking officials from 17 different species militaries were now in attendance, having traveled from across the galaxy to witness the conclusion of what many were calling the most significant military analysis in decades. Admiral Corvex had returned with 3 additional Cynthian fleet commanders. General Throckmar sat with representatives from the Thorian War College. Even the notoriously isolationist Crystalline Communion had sent observers, their geometric forms humming with curiosity in the back corner of the hall. Today we conclude our examination of human military capabilities, Zethkar began, his crystalline skin displaying the formal silver coloration reserved for matters of galactic importance. However, before we discuss tactical applications, I must share developments that occurred overnight. The hall fell silent immediately. Unexpected news in military circles was rarely positive. At 0347 Galactic Standard Time, the hegemony of Skarn declared war on the United Federation of Species. Their fleet movements suggest a primary assault on the human colony of New Geneva within 72 hours. The reaction was immediate. Representatives from various species began conferring in urgent whispers, clicks, and harmonic resonances. The Skarn were one of the most militarily aggressive species in the galaxy, possessing superior numbers, advanced technology, and a warrior culture that viewed conquest as the highest honor. More significantly, Zethkar continued, raising his voice above the commotion, the Skarn High Command has specifically requested that human forces be excluded from any defensive operations. They have declared humans to be unworthy opponents who would diminish the glory of proper warfare. Cadet Vex's High's mandibles clicked nervously. Commander, surely the Federation cannot agree to such demands? Human colonies deserve protection regardless of Skarn preferences. The Federation Council is meeting in emergency session, Zethkar replied. However, the human representative made a surprising statement. Ambassador Chen informed the Council that humanity would respectfully honor the Skarn request and would not deploy human military forces to defend New Geneva. The hall erupted in confusion. Admiral Corvex stood immediately. Commander, that makes no tactical sense. New Geneva has a population of 12 million humans. Why would they refuse to defend their own colony? Zethkar manipulated the holographic display to show real-time fleet movements throughout the sector. According to intercepted communications, the human admiralty believes this situation presents what they term an educational opportunity. Educational for whom? Asked General Throckmar. For the Skarn, Zethkar replied simply. The implications hit several of the more tactically minded observers immediately. Cadet Thane Moore leaned forward in his seat. Commander, are you suggesting that the humans are allowing the Skarn to attack in order to demonstrate something? Let me share the complete transcript of the human response to the Skarn demands, Zethkar said, displaying the text on his hologram. Ambassador Chen's exact words were, "The United Earth government respects the Skarn desire for honorable combat against worthy opponents. We therefore withdraw all human military assets from the New Geneva system. We wish the Skarn fleet commanders success in their endeavor to locate such worthy opponents." The silence stretched for nearly a minute as the assembled military minds processed this statement. Success in their endeavor to locate worthy opponents? Nexus 7 pulsed with confusion. But the only defenders of New Geneva would be the local colonial militia, Zethkar confirmed. 12,000 civilian volunteers with basic training and standard defensive equipment. 12,000 civilians against the entire Skarn assault fleet? Admiral Corvex's voice carried undertones of horror. The humans are abandoning their own people to certain death, are they? Zethkar asked, his skin shifting to a questioning orange hue. Let us examine the tactical situation more carefully. The holographic display zoomed in on the New Geneva system, showing the colony's orbital platforms, surface installations, and defensive positions. New Geneva was established 18 months ago as a joint human multi-species colony. While the human military has withdrawn, they left behind what they termed standard colonial infrastructure. Cadet Silthara studied the display carefully. That infrastructure appears remarkably robust for a simple civilian colony. Those orbital platforms have unusual configurations. Indeed, Zethkar agreed. The communications arrays possess remarkably powerful broadcast capabilities. The asteroid mining equipment demonstrates surprising precision and range. The agricultural processing facilities seem capable of producing far more than food products. The realization dawned on several observers simultaneously. The humans hadn't abandoned their colony. They had turned it into something else entirely. Commander, General Throckmar said slowly, are you suggesting that this entire civilian colony is actually a military installation, disguised as peaceful infrastructure? Nothing so crude, Zethkar replied. According to human planning documents that have been made available, New Geneva represents what humans call a dual-use development. Every system serves legitimate civilian purposes, while possessing additional capabilities that might prove useful in alternative circumstances. The display began highlighting specific installations. The orbital communication platforms can function as targeting arrays for surface-to-orbit weapons. The mining equipment can be rapidly reconfigured as mass drivers, capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The agricultural facilities produce the raw materials necessary for manufacturing various chemical compounds useful in defensive operations. And the 12,000 militia members? Asked Admiral Corvex. Every human colonist receives what they term basic survival training as part of their colonial preparation. This includes emergency medical procedures, equipment maintenance, improvised engineering, and what humans euphemistically call wildlife management. Cadet Vex High clicked thoughtfully. Wildlife management? Combat training disguised as practical skills, Zethkar clarified. Each civilian colonist possesses capabilities equivalent to professional soldiers from most other species. The holographic display updated with new information as reports began arriving from the New Geneva system. The Skarn fleet has just entered the outer system. 347 ships representing the largest assault force the Skarn have assembled in 2 centuries. Fleet Admiral Korvath has transmitted terms of surrender to the colony, demanding immediate capitulation. And the human response? Asked General Throckmar. Colonial Administrator Sarah Kim replied with a single word: no. The assembled officers watched with growing fascination as the tactical display updated in real time. The massive Skarn fleet advanced toward New Geneva with the confidence of overwhelming superiority. Their formation was textbook perfect. Their approach calculated to maximize psychological impact on the defenders. The Skarn are broadcasting their approach on all frequencies, Zethkar narrated. They want the entire galaxy to witness what they believe will be a demonstration of their martial superiority over soft human civilians. Are we able to monitor the engagement in real time? Asked Admiral Corvex. The humans have graciously provided full sensor access to all galactic military observers, Zethkar replied. They seem quite eager for everyone to witness what happens next. The display showed the Skarn fleet entering optimal weapons range. According to standard military doctrine, the overwhelming firepower advantage should have resulted in the colony's destruction within minutes. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. The orbital platforms are activating, Zethkar announced as energy signatures began appearing on the sensors. However, they're not targeting the Skarn fleet directly. The assembled observers watched in confusion as the platforms began broadcasting what appeared to be communication signals toward various asteroids throughout the system. Within moments, the asteroids began moving. Automated mining systems, breathed Ka.